Good morning again. So here's what I'd like to do today. I'd like to walk through this reading that we have from Philippians chapter 2 on page 306 in your Bibles that are on your chairs. And I'm going to go through basically each line and highlight a couple of things, and then we'll have a short message at the very end. So page 306, Philippians 2, beginning at the 12th verse. My dear friends, you have always obeyed God. Now, so we know that the writer is changing subjects, right? Because he's going back and saying, my dear friends. It's a new thought within this address, within this letter that he's writing. But then what does it mean, really, to obey God? At least in this context, we know from earlier that to obey God means to obey Jesus and what he taught and the way that he went about ministry and interacting with people. And so the heart of Jesus' message, right, is love the Lord your God with all your heart and mind and soul. So with all of your beingness, to do that sort of love. And then secondly, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Okay? Those two things, those are the teachings that it takes to obey God. You obeyed God while I was with you, and you've obeyed even more while I'm not with you. So continue to work out your own salvation. Now that sounds a little odd for Paul, but I don't think it's that strange. So what is not said is work for your salvation. There's a connotation that goes with this phrasing, to work out to full completion. Kind of like a story problem in math, right? You might have an intuitive sense about what the answer is, and you're probably right. But the question is, how do we get there? It's more in the journey than it is in the destination. What Paul is doing is he's imploring this community of faith to stay unified in Jesus. Unified in love, because it's the only way it's going to happen. And it's not easy to do. Because we all carry with us our own stuff that we can't get away from. And yet we are asked to be united as a community of faith. And honestly, the only way that Jesus could ever find that, and it holds true 2,000 years later, is through love. Do this with fear and trembling, it goes on to say in the letter. That sounds kind of out of whack, but maybe if we look a little bit deeper at what those words actually mean, we can get a little bit of help. So a more valid or an equally valid translation could be humbly and dependent on God. So as you are working within the salvation, do so humbly and dependent on God. Now we get into some cool stuff. God is working in you. That right there, that's the slam dunk. God is doing the work. And in this way, the whole thing is way bigger than you. And it's way bigger than me. Continues. He wants your plans and your acts to be keeping with his good purpose. So not only is God working within you, but you're also part of God's plan and part of God's good purpose. It's all sort of put together there, and the central figure, as we know, is God. Do everything without fault or arguing. Pretty self-explanatory. But arguing usually gets us in trouble, right? Then you will be pure and without blame. You will be children of God without fault in the sinful world. Among the people of the world, you will shine like the stars of heaven. You shine as you hold out to them the word of life. In this case, as in most cases, the word of life is not a what. The word of life here that Paul is talking about is a who. The word of life is Jesus. So I can brag about you on the day that Christ returns. I can be happy that I didn't run out or work for nothing. I understand this because one of my greatest joys is to be able to talk to people about y'all as children of God and the way that God is working through you. It's not bragging to like build myself up or even to build you up, but it is a direct point to show what God can do and is doing and promises yet to do. Okay? But my life might even be poured out like a drink offering on your sacrifices. I'm talking about the way that you serve because you believe. One of the foundational aspects of living as a follower of Jesus is to be in service to others. Remember when gas stations were service stations, right? Where you were served. That is like one of the greatest ways that we can live as followers of Christ. Even so, I am glad, I'm joyful with all of you, so you should be glad and joyful with me. Paul genuinely wants this community of faith at Philippi to know the way that they bring him joy. And they do. They do, they do. And I understand that as well. You all bring me great, great joy. I'm lucky enough to be in many of your lives in extended ways as well as up here in this sort of a way. But I am brought joy from you. And then Paul asks, please show joy to him as well. So that's our reading for today. Now I'd like to do just a short message about some things. I'd like to take a couple of seconds to talk about stars and about light pollution. All of us have felt this effect of light pollution, but like many forms of pollution, light pollution is something that takes some time to understand. And even to see the long-term effects, it takes quite a while. Here's what light pollution is. At its most basic level, it is light that washes out the night sky. Okay? Just put sort of a film over the whole night sky. It works like this. We have lights all over the place, right? And at night, we use them so that we can see better. We light our homes, right? We light our roads, and we have lights that show off businesses. And in reality, lights are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? So here's how those lights work. They do shine on and light up what we want them to, but at the same time, light is lost, okay? And that's the pollution part. Sometimes it's reflected up from the ground, okay? And at other times it just leaks out of this filter all by itself. Now that's sort of heady to even sort of imagine that stuff. So here's a picture of light pollution. You can see where the major cities are, right? Yeah, that's kind of clear. Now here's another side-by-side picture of a dark sky and then a washed out or light polluted sky. Now the thing about light pollution is that we don't always see it. We don't always recognize it. Because we've gotten used to seeing the sky the way we see the sky. At least that's what we think. Because once you step outside of areas with light pollution, the stars become clearer, the night becomes brighter, and we are seeing a total different piece of the divine. Our world today, quite frankly, suffers from pollution in both literal and figurative ways. We have a societal pollution, I believe. And it's in this context, within societal pollution, that we are asked to shine like stars. Shining like stars exhibits deep joy in a cracked and broken world. Because just as we get used to a cloudy night sky, we also get a bit clouded about what we see happening around us. Maybe a little bit jaded, but maybe we just sort of have padded things around us so it doesn't affect us so much, right? It sort of becomes the norm. So what we're trying to do is sort of step outside of all of this so we can better see what's going on. So that we can see what's going on inside this world and then be motivated to go and do something about it and transform the world. Paul doesn't beat around the bush when he gets into this stuff. He calls an ace, and that's where it's at. It says, do this without finding fault in others. Finding fault is serious pollution. Finding fault is something that we're good at as well. We do it in order to build ourselves up and to put down others. So we need to see that societal pollution of finding fault and work against it. Begin to clean that up. We're to do it without arguing. Arguing and disagreeing are two very, very different things. We argue, and when we argue, we tend not to listen to others, and we don't value other people's opinions anyway. When we disagree, we are willing to listen to each other, to listen to see what somebody else has going on, and then speaking and sharing in dialogue. Okay? Disagreement takes two people at least working together. Arguing is a one-sided gig. And Paul says that we are to hold on to Jesus and his instructions for living. The other place that we find joy in a broken world is by serving others, right? Lots of service-centered businesses, right? It's a good thing. It's a good thing. But as we serve others, we may need to make sure that we don't do it out of shoulds and oughts. And we don't serve others because of some sort of obligation, or that we feel bad. Not so much that others will see what you've done. We don't serve people so that we can be recognized for what we did. We serve others simply because we believe. And because we believe that it's that way in service that Jesus acted, and that we will help to transform the world. In this pollution of the world that's all around us, we are commended then to shine like stars, yeah? Shine with our actions and your words that bring joy to this hurting and broken world. Shine like stars in the worry of a hospital waiting room with your presence and your deep listening maybe even a hug. Shine like stars in a questionable board meeting and where decisions are being made by speaking the truth. Even if you put your job on the line or it affects the bottom line. We shine like stars in the fear and darkness of addiction. And then it's your intervention that helps to shine like a star. It's this divine spark of starlight that's deep within our soul that shines forth with grace and life and love and peace and joy to this broken and hurting world. It's this divine spark that will coalesce with other souls to transform the world and end this pollution. We are invited to shine like stars.